Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Thursday, November 24th. Bit of a noisier environment, busier environment for my typical behind the scenes video, and that's because I'm on my way. Which way shall I go? I guess I'll go this way. I'm on my way to meet Daryl. Wander Eats Daryl for breakfast. He reached out to me last night and asked me if I'd ever been to a place called Jamaica Blue at Robertson. And I had not. I knew the building because I'd walked past it before. I saw this place called Robertson, and I remember looking up at it as I walked by and commenting on it. Looked like a fancy building, shopping center of some kind. I guess Jamaican Blue is located there. Looks like kind of a Western place. You can get your typical Western breakfast. So, and Daryl is actually already there. The Jamaican Blue doesn't open until 8 o'clock. It's about 7:30 right now. But there's what he calls a mamak right next door. And he's already at the mamak having a tea tarek. So I'm on my way there right now, and I thought I'd chat a little bit as I walk along. See if I can gather my thoughts out here in the real world rather than sitting in front of the curtain inside my room. I suppose the main topic would have to be my ongoing plans for going to Sumatra on a bike tour for as long as 2 months. That plan, as crazy as it sounds, seems to be developing in my head more and more. And the more I plan it, the more I think about it, the more it seems like that's something that's going to happen. At least I'm living my life as if that is going to happen shortly. So yesterday, for example, well, I did a ton of things yesterday. Can't list them all. But one of the things is I need a few items for my bike to get it roadworthy. And one item I need is a new tire pressure gauge, because the one I had doesn't really work anymore. And I thought I knew a place where I could get it. I checked online. There was a bike shop in the Bangsar area called Roadlink. I was told this is like one of the biggest bicycle chains or shops in Kuala Lumpur. And I could get there easily, just take the MRT to Bangsar and then go for a short walk from there. So I did that. Turns out the walk was as challenging as all walks in Kuala Lumpur tend to be. I don't know what the heck is going on here. I'm in the middle of a herd, like a literal herd of buses. Oh, there must be some sort of a conference or a big group staying at the hotel here. They need a lot of buses. Yeah, Bangsar, busy place. I don't know a whole lot about Bangsar. I mean, I've been there a few times, but seems to be kind of an upscale neighborhood. I saw a lot of fancy cars, car dealerships for Mercedes, things like that. And busy. I guess I hit it right around lunchtime or something. Really hard to even get across the roads. And then as I was walking towards the bike shop, of course, I had to navigate all kinds of crazy intersections. I used Google Maps for walking directions, led me into all kinds of weird spots. Did all my usual climbing over fences and trying to, Google Maps would say you can walk this way, walk this way. And you can, as long as you're feeling athletic on that particular day. But I made it to the bike shop. Quite a fancy place. Not my kind of bike shop, I don't think. It was a little bit too upscale in terms of the products they sell. Let's see, am I heading in the right direction? Yes, I am. And they did not have the tire gauge that I wanted. They checked the warehouse for me. Helpful guys there, helpful clerks. And they said they're sold out everywhere. The model that I wanted, They didn't even have it in their warehouse or at any of their other outlets, so they couldn't get it for me. So that was kind of a dead end. And I also need sandals. I've actually had the exact same sandals for years now. I went to a place called Sport Direct here in Kuala Lumpur back in the days when I was looking for a new pair of sandals, and they had these, you know, fairly basic Adidas sport sandals for like 100 ringgit, something like that. I bought a pair of those years ago, wore them into the ground. I mean, I wore them until there was like nothing left of them. And then when it was time to replace them, I happened to be right back here in Kuala Lumpur. So I just went straight back to a Sport Direct, and they had the exact same Adidas sandals right there. No change at all, a big wall of them. So I just bought the exact same sandals again. Wow, crazy traffic. Check this out. Remember, I walked to this exact route when I met Jamie for coffee for the very first time, when I met Jamie at Starbucks at Berjaya Times Square. And I remember walking along here, and yeah, the traffic was just as crazy that morning as it is now. Kuala Lumpur is the land of cars, I'll tell you that. What was I saying? Oh yes, so I just replaced the old sandals I was wearing with the exact same sandals, but a new pair. Tossed out the old pair and went away, and that second pair is what I'm wearing right now, and they're also completely worn out. The straps are actually ripping out of the soles, and I've had to get them sewn back together at, you know, little shops in Thailand actually. And the rubber on the bottom has worn right through. I'm not quite walking on pavement yet on my bare feet, but it's getting pretty close. So it's time to get new sandals, and I thought, well, heck, you know, I have so many things to think about. I don't really want to devote a lot of brain cells to picking out sandals. So I thought, well, if I'm happy with the ones I'm wearing and I can get the exact same ones all over again, just go do that. So it just turned out that when I was near the bike shop in Bangsar, I looked at Google Maps for like Sport Direct locations. I was going to go back to the same one I've been to before, and so I made plans to go there. But then I thought, oh, maybe there's one near, like closer to me. And I checked Google Maps, and it turns out there was another Sport Direct just a block away, right where I was, very near the bike shop. So I thought, I'll go there. So I was walking towards that Sport Direct, and man, that was a challenge. There was a busy road there. I made it to the median, like halfway across the road, and I thought I was never going to make it over the second half. I was going to have to buy a home right in the middle of the road and just live there for the rest of my life, because I couldn't cross, you know, the second half. I eventually got so impatient. It was so weird. There was like traffic coming from 3 different directions, like 3 different intersections. And when the light would turn red at one of the intersections, and you might get a break in the traffic, the light would turn green at the other one. And then the traffic from the new street would just take up where traffic from the old street stopped. So I still couldn't get across. And when traffic from that light stopped, then vehicles started coming around this corner and filled up the gaps after that. And it was just like, the result was a steady flow of traffic that was never going to stop. So I finally picked what I thought was an opening, and I ran. And I happened to run at the exact same time when one car was making a turn, and it had to hit the accelerator hard in order to pick up speed, because other cars were coming behind it. And that driver just hit the gas hard when I wasn't expecting him to. And man, he was coming at me like at speed. Oh, I think I see the Mamak. And Daryl must be up there somewhere. And yeah, man, I ran for my life. Made it across, breathing heavy, all hot and sweaty. It's a long, I thought it was going to be a really simple, pleasurable errand, turned into an expedition. And then when I got to Sport Direct, of course, you know how this story ends. If you know anything about Planet Doug, the world that I live in, it was closed. It was closed. And there's no reason for it to be closed that I could figure out. On Google Maps, it's listed as open, you know, the hours. I checked the hours, it said it was open. Of course, you can't trust what Google Maps says about places being open or closed. But anyway, oh, I guess I have to go around this way. Yes, I see Daryl. And yeah, so that was the end of Sport Direct adventure number 1. And I'll end the story there just because yeah, I'm here for hopefully tea to rec with Daryl. So yeah, this is where I am to meet Daryl. Kadai Mamak Hussein. And this is actually the Robertson building. And I guess Jamaican Blue is in there somewhere, and that's where we're having breakfast. I don't know where it is though. So Daryl settled up his bill at the Mamak place, so I didn't sit down there at all. And yeah, he said Jamaica Blue was opening soon, so there it is behind me. I didn't realize it was on the main floor. I remember walking past it and talking about it actually on the other video when I went to meet Jamie. Maybe I didn't include it in the video, but I made a note about this as a coffee shop. I didn't realize it was also kind of a breakfast, like a fancy breakfast place. But anyway, I'm going to put the camera away, have breakfast with Daryl, and then check in and finish my Sport Direct story. This is the interior of the place. As I said, I'm going to shut off the camera, but since Daryl is here, I don't think he'll... I told him this is a casual behind-the-scenes video.
I'm good, man. Don't worry.
So I have to at least show him for a second or two. There's Daryl on the video. All right, menu, and yeah, I'm gonna order something. I noticed on the menu online they have a big breakfast. And that's kind of a hard thing for me to resist when I see a big breakfast. Partially because it usually comes with a lot of different things, and you don't have to make as many decisions. You don't have to choose between this, that, or the other. You order the big breakfast and you get a little bit of everything, and I like that. Quick note about breakfast here. I think Daryl is going to go for the avocado smash, which looks pretty good. I was tempted by, well, here's their menu, by the way. You can actually see a lot of the things they serve online. I was tempted by something like eggs Florentine, and there's a brekkie omelet, all kinds of things, but I think I'm just gonna go with my instinct, which is to go for the big breakfast, which includes grilled turkey slices, chicken sausage, roasted tomatoes. That kind of sold it for me when I saw the photo, and it had roasted tomatoes there. And then sauteed button mushrooms and sourdough toast. So you get a little bit of everything, which is why I kind of always like the big breakfast option. If you want a smaller breakfast, they do have something called anytime eggs. And then you can just get 2 eggs served with toast and butter. And then you can add a whole bunch of add-ons. But basically, that's what the big breakfast is, but with all of the add-ons. So that seems the more logical choice. So that's what I'm going to get. Quick note from Daryl.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Why did you choose this place?
Because I usually used to come here because my office was further down the road.
Okay.
And I love this like little corner of the area, and there's a very, very popular apartment right above for Airbnb, so you get a lot of foreigners here as well. And I thought, I was looking for a good place to have breakfast with you, as you know, and somewhere that you haven't been, and so I was looking around the map, and filtered by ratings, so this was the one that showed up. So I've never been here before. So
that was my next question. You haven't been here before?
No, never.
Okay.
I passed this a few times because most of the time I go down there for the mama, which I was there earlier.
Right,
well.
okay. Why the avocado smash? What caught your eye about the avocado smash?
Because on the photos it looks so damn good, but it's not here.
Oh, I see. You saw it somewhere else.
Yeah,
okay.
online. So it looks heck of a lot of value for money. But I'm gonna change it to the smoked salmon.
Smoked salmon. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You hang out with this guy, you end up having some interesting breakfast. So, yeah. Left to my own devices, I'd be in my room drinking instant coffee all morning. So it's here we are. There appears to be a story to go along with this place. Okay, this is all about the coffee, Jamaican coffee, the journey. So the best coffee growing regions, I guess that's where Jamaica is located. And then there's the whole story of coffee beans from Jamaica, the history, how they're grown and processed, and how they eventually end up here. And then finally, what makes their Jamaican coffee special. Latte has arrived. I got latte and you got?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
Okay. Just chocolate? Like hot chocolate?
Yeah, just hot chocolate.
Okay. I didn't know such a thing existed still. And yeah, it came in nice big cups.
Humongous.
Yeah. So I like that.
Is it hot? Oh, that's hot.
Yeah, it feels pretty hot. So now comes the ultimate test.
Can I do this?
You may. Daryl has taken over the GoPro.
Oh yeah, he's got a road. Yeah, so I can still hear you. How's it? Nice?
It's pretty good.
Cool.
It's pretty good. Yeah. Probably a lighter coffee flavor than some places I've been. Maybe because it's bigger.
Yeah.
So I think that happens. You get more volume. Maybe the coffee strength comes down because it has more liquid. Yeah. But I don't mind that at all. I prefer a big cup. I don't have a mic on Daryl, so you may not hear his voice so clearly. But
all good. Here you go.
Things are happening a lot faster than we expected. The coffee came, and then right after it came our breakfast, and your avocado smash was not available.
Yeah, so I ordered the eggs Florentine instead. With
okay, that's what I was thinking about getting. So he did get the eggs Florentine, and I got my big breakfast.
That's right.
There's the big breakfast. That looks pretty much exactly what I was expecting and wanted. And had I gone fancy, that's what I would have gotten, the eggs Florentine. That looks pretty good too. Breakfast is over. Daryl has moved on with his day. There's Jamaica Blue behind me. Breakfast was okay. Maybe I was sort of distracted during breakfast and I couldn't appreciate the food very much. But the overall experience to me and the food itself, I don't know what it was. It didn't really come together for me, just based on that experience. It's not a place I would return to for breakfast. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I didn't give it justice. Like I said, I was kind of distracted chatting with Daryl. Didn't give the food, my full attention. But it didn't seem like anything special. And then for the price that you pay, it's a little bit of an expensive place. Yeah, I don't think I would go back there for a breakfast. If I had a choice, I'd go somewhere else. But yeah, it was all right. I'm just walking this way for a minute because there's a church here. I've seen it from the street before, but I've never gotten close to it. I think it has some history here. And the church is right beside the Merdeka 118 building. So it's kind of an interesting pairing, the old and the new. Up there, the morning sun glinting off the skyscraper and the older church. I just looked it up online, and this is St. Anthony's Catholic Church. I don't know anything about its history, but based on some of the comments I saw on Google Maps, it appears to be a functioning church. So, you know, Catholic masses are performed here, so you could come here for services if you wish to. Yeah, I just found it visually kind of striking right beside Merdeka 118. And in terms of my stories from yesterday, I guess I left off with my hunt for sandals at Sport Direct. I went to that Sport Direct near the bike shop where, yeah, I couldn't find anything at the bike shop that I wanted. They didn't have the pressure gauge that I wanted. And while I was there, I thought I could just pick up some patches for my bike. I do have patch kits, of course, but they're many years old by now, and I don't know whether the glue and the patches are still any good. So I figured while I was out, I might as well just pick up a couple of, patch kits. They're generally not expensive. But there too, the world has moved on, I guess, because all I could find were glueless patches. And I've used them in the past, and for me, they don't work. In the heat and humidity and rigorous touring when you're on your bike a lot, those patches where you just stick on without actual glue, they don't hold, they don't stay in place. They may be good in an urban environment, but in the conditions I've been in, they generally let go. So I never use them. I prefer the old school where you actually have the glue and you put the glue on and you let it dry and get really sticky, and then you put that stuff, that like it vulcanizes and has a chemical reaction with the rubber of the tube, and it becomes like one piece of rubber. That's a real patch. So that's what I want. But that bike shop didn't sell any. And then as I was leaving from Sport Direct, because it was closed, supposed to be open, but it was closed. As I was leaving Sport Direct to go back to Bangsar LRT station, I saw another bike shop there, a place called Cycleology. And I popped in there. But it was another sort of high-end bike shop where they sold a lot of very expensive bikes, I think. And they do a lot of repairs, and they have parts for these modern, expensive bikes. But they didn't really have anything for me. They didn't have a pressure gauge. And all the little bits and bobs that you might expect a bike store to have, they didn't have anything like that. Like patch kits, they didn't have any patch kits either. So that's interesting. So, since I had no luck at that Sport Direct, I decided to go to my regular Sport Direct in Bukit Bintang, and I went back to Pasar Seni, and I was going to change to the Kajang line. I guess it's Kajang, the Sungai Buloh Kajang line, to go to Bukit Bintang, where Sport Direct is located, the one that I know about. And I got on the train and I sat down, and I was still thinking a lot about going to Sumatra, and I was on the internet reading about the history of Sumatra, looking for places of interest where I can go. And I got so involved in that, I went about 6 or 7 MRT stops before I realized I was going in the wrong direction. I'd gotten on the wrong train. So I was heading in the wrong direction. So I had to get off the train, cross over to the other side of the tracks, get on the train going back in that direction. And by then I was pretty exhausted, hot and tired, and I decided just to give up for the day, and I never bothered to finish my errand. So I never went to Sport Direct, and that was the end of my morning, and I didn't get anything done. I spent a lot of time looking at Google Maps for Sumatra, thinking if I do go on this bike tour, I would be landing in a city called Dumai. And with my usual style, I could probably stay in Dumai for a month or two and I'd be as happy as can be. But for this trip, I don't really want to stay in places a long time. I want to keep moving. So I'll probably just spend a night or two in Dumai, get organized, and then start cycling. And I think my goal for the initial part of the tour would be to go across Sumatra to the coast on the other side to a city called Bukit Tinggi. And in the Bukit Tinggi area, there seems to be a lot of interest, a lot of history there, a lot of interesting culture, some beautiful scenery. There's some lakes there. And then there's the town of Padang on the coast. I believe it's called Padang. So could spend some time in Bukit Tinggi, riding my bike around that area, visiting the lakes, maybe climb a volcano, go down to the coast at Padang, and then from there ride my bike up the coast, either up the coast or through the interior to Lake Toba, spend some time in Lake Toba. There's a town called Sibolga on the coast. Maybe go there first, then go up to Lake Toba. Spend some time in Berastagi. I've been to Berastagi before, but I never climbed the volcano there. That's one of the main things visitors do in Berastagi. And I didn't do that when I was there, so I could go back there, climb the volcano, and then from there I could loop back to Dumai. And if I do just that, it works out to about 2,000 kilometers just going to those three places. Dumai to, you know, Bukit-Tinggi, Padang, Lake Toba, and then back to Dumai. It's about 2,000 kilometers. So it's a little bit further than I expected, to be honest, because I was thinking about doing the loop up to Banda Aceh as well, but that would add another 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers just going to Banda Aceh. Sumatra is a huge place. So to give myself enough time to experience a lot, I may just do that 2,000 kilometer loop instead of trying to do the full 4,000 kilometer loop. But I'll just sort of play that by ear, I guess, see how it goes. Other preparations for this upcoming trip to Sumatra, again, assuming it happens, involved a visit to that building. That is the Maybank building. And I went to Maybank because Maybank is the official representative of Federal Express here in Malaysia. So if you want to cash an American Express traveler's check, that's where you have to go. As far as I understand it, you can only cash them at a Maybank outlet, and you can only cash them at their headquarters. So in all of Malaysia, I was told this is the only place where you can cash a traveler's check. And I just happened to have a bunch of them from many, many years ago that I got them at a time when I thought they still made some sense. They could be useful. But these days, yeah, traveler's checks are really not useful at all, because as I said, they're meant to be used in emergencies. You find yourself stuck somewhere, you've been robbed, or for some reason you have no access to money through banking outlets, whatever. You always have traveler's checks, and then you can cash them. Plus, they're very secure, that if they're ever stolen, it's not like money, you can just get them replaced. If they're stolen, you can contact Federal Express and they will replace them and you won't lose any money. That's the whole idea behind traveler's checks. But of course, none of that helps you out at all if there's nowhere to cash them in. Like if you're in the middle of Sumatra and you run into an emergency and you need money, well, you have traveler's checks, but they won't do you any good because there's going to be nowhere that you can cash them anyway. You can't go to any bank anymore. The banks don't accept them. So they're really not that useful anymore. So I decided to take my remaining traveler's checks up to Maybank while I'm here and just cash them in, and I can get the cash for them. And then I can do whatever I want, you know, with that money. So and I had a little bit of an adventure connected with that. I talked about this in a previous video, that I've always had trouble with handwriting for some reason. My fingers and hands just don't work that well when it comes to like writing. I've always had terrible handwriting. I can't really control my fingers that well. And it's gotten worse and worse over the years. And these days, it doesn't matter that much. You never handwrite anyway. You do everything on computers. But it turns out that the one area where there's a problem is signatures. You still always have to write a signature. And I find I can write one or maybe two signatures. And after that, my fingers cramp up and I can't write anymore. And in theory, with traveler's checks, you're supposed to countersign them in front of the bank clerk. So the check has one signature on it, and then when you cash them, you go up to the counter, and while the clerk is watching, then you sign them a second time at the bottom. You countersign them, and they have to watch you countersign them, and then they check the signatures to make sure that they match. but I wanted to cash 16 traveler's checks, which would mean writing my signature 16 times, and that's impossible to do. There's just no way I can do it. So I took a risk this time, and what I did was, back in my room at the Kojoy, I got out my 16 traveler's checks and I signed them over a period of days. I had them laid out on my desk inside my room, and every time I went to make a cup of coffee, I would sign one check, set it aside, and then so during the day I might sign 4 different traveler's checks, and then every day I would sign 4 more of them, and then over a few days I ended up writing my signature properly 16 times on 16 individual traveler's checks. And I was hoping that even though I had countersigned them myself, you know, before I went to the bank, I hoped that that would be okay, because now they were already signed, and by rights the bank could say, oh no, we can't accept these, you know, because maybe I stole them. You know, they have to see you sign them just to make sure that you are the person who owns them, right? But I really wouldn't be able to sign them in the moment, not all 16 of them. So I signed them in advance, and then luckily when I went to Maybank, they didn't make an issue out of it. I just handed over the traveler's checks. They were already signed, and technically you're also supposed to write the date on them, like the date that you cash them in, and I would normally you know, do that in advance as well. But this time I didn't want to do that, because if they said no, we can't cash them, now I've already dated them as well, right? So I decided to wait until I got to the bank, and once I figured out that they would accept them and they would cash them, then I could write the date. But it turns out they weren't worried about that either. It didn't matter to them whether they were dated or not. So maybe they dated them themselves with a stamp or something. But the one thing they really needed to do was confirm that they were real. So I still have my purchase record, the official receipt that you get when you buy them. And I handed them the copy of the purchase record as well. And they had to take those into a back room. And then it took, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes for them to do whatever it is they need to do officially to confirm that these traveler's checks were real and valid. And then once they got a confirmation that they were real, then they came back out and they cashed them for me, and I got the money. So that was that small adventure. Though it turns out I wasn't able to do all of them because there was a limit. I'd actually gone to Maybank earlier to confirm all these details. You know, I wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And I went to Maybank and I talked to them in person, and I asked them, you know, can I cash traveler's checks here? Yes. And I said, well, is there a limit to how much you can cash at one time? And they said, no, there's no limit at all. So I brought all of my traveler's checks, all the ones I had remaining, and I brought them all in, and I went up to the clerk, you know, the bank clerk, and they said, no, you can't do them all, there's a limit. So it's like, oh, for Pete's sake, you know, because I'd gone there specifically to ask that question, is there a limit? And they said, no, there was no limit. And then when I showed up, they says, oh, by the way, sir, there is a limit. You can't do all of these at once. So I could only cash some of them. And I only mention that because the other day I was talking about my own computer problems and how, as an individual person, very little of the technology in my life ever works. Like, everything is full of glitches and problems all the time. And it made me wonder how it is that major banks and airlines and corporations all manage to function day in, day out without these huge computer problems. Like, how do they maintain their computer systems, those huge complex systems, when I'm just one person and I can't even maintain my own systems? How in the world do they do it? Yeah, impatient bus back there. Anyway, so I was wondering about banks and how reliable their systems were and how perfect everything normally is. But then I noticed that I had to give them a copy of my passport, and then they had to fill out all these forms. And a very important detail for passports is their expiry date. They have to make sure that your passport is not expired, and they have to write down the expiry date, the issue date and the expiry date. And so I gave them all that information, and then when I looked at my receipt later on, after all of this was done, I noticed that they wrote down my birthday as the passport expiry date. So that was like, okay, so they're not perfect. Even their systems break down. But of course, it was the human being who made a mistake. They actually entered my birthday as my passport's expiry date. So mistakes can still creep into the banking system regardless, you know. But anyway, I got it all done. Maybank, they were extremely helpful, really nice people, very efficient. Yeah, no issues at all. So I got money for my trip to Sumatra, if I go. Wow, look at this. When I came back to the Kojoi, I noticed that there are men over here on ladders. You can see them just over by the pillar there. And I figured something important must be happening. And look at that. New signs that they're putting up today, I assume. Kojoi Hotel. The new branding, you know, the logo for the Kojoi. Another one here, and then a third one. So I guess 3 of these new signs are going up on the side of the building. Because up there you can see it still has the Winson Hotel sign. But I guess they are going to be taken down now, and it will no longer have a sign saying Winson. It's going to have a sign, this sign right here, saying Kojoi. And another big change is right here. You notice that there's a door now. They painted the whole front of the hotel, and then they put in automatic sliding glass doors. So you just, yeah, you push the button, and then the doors open. So now the whole lobby is air conditioned, because they can seal the lobby area with these glass doors. So that's very fancy. And I'll show you how that works. Push. And there you go. The doors open. And they've added more and more furniture on the inside. So some very nice tables there. And the sign that they put up. And then more tables and chairs over here. And they're going for a little bit of a vintage style. So they're putting in some decorations like this old vintage furniture with a rotary telephone and an iron. And over here, yeah, a sewing machine. Again, kind of vintage. And there's my bike. Still down here in the lobby. Now that this door is in place, I might have to bring it up more secure location. Maybe I can bring it up closer to my room. Yeah, since the lobby is becoming more and more open, now there's a door on both sides. You know, my bike isn't really that secure anymore, just sitting right there in front of the main door. Plus it might get in people's way, so I asked them if I could move it up here and keep it on my floor. So this is the new temporary home for my bike right up here. There's my room right there. So it's a nice place to put the bike. It fits in the elevator quite easily, so that's not a problem bringing it up and down from up here. And I can work on the bike up here a little bit to maintain it and do some tuning up. So I think that is it for my thoughts for behind the scenes for this morning. I'm back inside my room at the Kojoi. I'm just here to get organized and get on with the rest of my day. Yeah, it was really interesting to see that they're putting up all the new signs, you know, the big round ones that I saw down on the street. And on the other side of the building, the men that were up on ladders, they were actually putting a different sign in place. There's a big open expanse of concrete there, like a piece of wall. And they're going to put the lettering in there, like individual letters that spell out Kojoi Hotel in kind of an arch over there, an arc, you know. So that'll be quite nice as well. Yeah. All the rebuilding and the rebranding to turn this into the modern Kojoy Hotel is continuing. So that's very, very cool. And I have a lot of other thoughts on my mind, in particular to do with pop culture. And I had planned on talking about that this morning, but then going out for breakfast with Daryl kind of sidetracked me a little bit, so I think I will save my pop culture summary for another day. And I haven't been doing a lot on my gear here this morning, so I don't have any technology stories either. So I think we'll end the behind-the-scenes summary of my life right there. All right, that's it. Time to get on with the rest of my day, and I'll see you in the next video.